currently considering private member statements. I call the member for Maitland.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Madam Deputy Speaker, the government announced in May that 2,500 jobs would be cut from the New South Wales public sector. This is in addition to the more than 200 public sector jobs the Liberals and Nationals have cut from my community that we know of in the last 8 years. We've had cuts from Crown Lands, Family and Community Services, Housing New South Wales, Community Health and Revenue New South Wales. And now I have heard from a number of sources that some 200 workers based in Maitland's Minerals House will be moved to Newcastle sometime after the lease on the building expires on the 31st of December this year. These workers are a vital and vibrant part of our CBD lunchtime economy, but shifting jobs from Maitland to a central hub in the second largest coastal city in New South Wales is yet another slap in the face for rural and regional New South Wales. It will have a devastating effect on our regional economy. I'd like to remind the Premier of the promises that she made when my colleague, the member for Cessnock, asked her in this place to confirm that every regional public sector job would be maintained in its current community. The Premier's response was absolute. She stated, in part, "I assure every community in rural and regional New South Wales that their government jobs are protected." And she went on to say that we know that 3 jobs in one town could be worth more than 30 jobs in another. We understand that. That's why the government will make sure we protect all of our jobs in rural and regional New South Wales. In light of this, I've written to the Minister for Crown Lands, the Minister for Planning and Public Spaces, the Minister for Finance and Small Business, the Minister for Energy and Environment, who's in this place, and the Premier herself. Now, to date, I've just received one response to my correspondence from the Minister for Planning and Public Spaces. It said, "As this matter falls within the portfolio of the Special Minister of State, Minister for the Public Service and Employee Relations, Aboriginal Affairs and the Arts, it has been referred to the Office of the Honourable Don Harwin for consideration." I still have no response. Just in case it wasn't referred, I have written to him. Now, this response to a letter written on the 26th of June was sent to my office on the 19th of July, over 3 weeks after I sent the initial letter. And I must say, they have to be congratulated. They responded in a more timely manner than the Premier or her other ministers, or indeed the one in the chamber opposite me. Actually, though, it's a pretty surprising response. I've written to the Minister, in fact, again last week to confirm that he really doesn't know where or how many of his current Maitland-based staff will be located after the 31st of December 2019. I mean, I know I'm not a minister yet, Madam Speaker, but I would have thought that such matters were of interest to a minister, and that even if they weren't of interest, that he could have actually asked someone in his agency in response to my request, like the people who will be arranging payroll, relocations, moves, what is going to happen. Strangely enough, a similar thing happened when I raised this issue with the Deputy Premier on question on notice 612 on 20th of June this year, when I asked him, does the Planning, Industry and Environment PI Clusters Plan, announced in the New South Wales Budget 2019-20, to consolidate regional offices, which included staff from Orange, include any staff from the Maitland PIE office? The Deputy Premier failed to answer the actual question about whether the consolidation of regional offices include any staff from Maitland by squidging onto the topic of the staff at Orange and saying merely that there are no plans to relocate staff from the Maitland office to the new Orange office. That is not the question I asked him. Meaningfully, he did not rule out any moves to the new Newcastle building that has been the subject of much conjecture around the Hunter as to which departments it will house. And the Deputy Premier did, however, confirm that the lease on Minerals House will end on the 31st of December this year. The Maitland's Business Chamber is vitally concerned about these issues. They know that the multiplier effect of money into economy is about 7 times. This means we're looking at a potentially $90 million drop in economic activity in my city if this goes ahead. For all their trouble, all their concern, a representation to the Premier, they have not received any word. Diddly squat, no response from this Premier to the Maitland Business Chamber. I myself have received only diversions, avoidance, obfuscations or stony silence from the government, the Premier and her ministers, and meanwhile 350 people who work in Minerals House in Maitland wonder who will move to Newcastle, who will stay in Maitland, and the real kicker of those who move to Newcastle, who will have their jobs go on the chopping block. Because we know when it comes to regions for public service employment, This government does not consider Newcastle a regional city. It considers it a city in its own right. And so if my staff from my community are relocated to Newcastle, there is no guarantee for those 350 jobs. And I specifically asked the Premier to guarantee she will keep her work and she will not use sneaky backdoor deals to steal jobs from Maitland and ruin my community's economy. Thank you.
I thank the member for Maitland.